Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession. Today, I want to talk about Hellraiser 3, directed by Anthony Hickox. The original Hellraiser is a masterclass in horror, combining a well-paced script, great acting, and equal parts enthralling and horrifying psychosexual demons known as Cenobites, who are accidentally raised by a man trying to solve a mysterious puzzle box. Solving the box summoned the Cenobites, literal demons from hell, to come take your soul. The effects were groundbreakingly terrifying, and the movie remains an all-time great in the horror genre to this day. The series immediately started to go off the rails in Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, which brought back the final girl, Kirsty, but living in an insane asylum as a result of no one believing her story about demons being summoned and murdering her family. To be fair, it's something which is hard to believe unless you've seen it, like Tyler Perry giving the most enjoyable performance in Gone Girl. Hellraiser 2 keeps the same general premise, with a doctor in the asylum trying to raise demons for reasons, and ultimately being successful, much to his dismay. Despite a shaky start, Hellbound ends up as a perfectly fine entry in the franchise and is enough to keep you excited about what's coming next. Hellraiser 3 takes that excitement and absolutely shits the bed, like Amber Heard after an argument. This movie has some redeeming qualities, kind of like dating Amber Heard, but also like dating Amber Heard, the overall experience is negative enough you aren't going to be recommending it to anyone anytime soon. Let's quickly go through the plot of the movie and you'll see what I'm talking about. Hellraiser 3 starts off with a man who wanders into a closed art gallery and gets talked into buying a giant sculpture from a homeless man for, and I quote, "whatever you think it's worth," which sounds stupid beyond believability, so here, let me show you.
How much you want for it?
Whatever you think it's worth.
Next, we cut to a news reporter, annoyed she is at an emergency department but no one was grievously injured, so she doesn't have anyone's horrible misfortune and suffering to report on. Lucky for her, right after this, someone gets wheeled into the ED with a bunch of hooks on the end of chains all over their body. The reporter sees the triage room where the hooks raise up into the air and rip the guy's head apart so it explodes, though the head is still there in the next shot. I want to pause here and say that in the previous movies, the puzzle box would cause hooks and chains to fly out of the wall to dismember and torture people, but it was always in the exact location the box was and would disappear after the Cenobites captured their prey, so having the chains exist outside of its context shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the franchise and its rules, a trend which only gets worse as we go. So anyway, the reporter lady tries to track down the girl who came into the ED with Chain Guy, which leads her to a club where she gives everyone her business card so they can call her at home if they know the girl. Detective work which is painfully 90s, but is reminiscent of old noir films and actually is pretty fun. Eventually she tracks down the girl and reporter lady gives her a place to stay in exchange for information, and they end up forming a mismatched cop duo in the mold of Lethal Weapon and try to solve the mystery of the puzzle box, which the girl has in her possession for some reason. While this is going on, we discover the guy who bought the statue earlier actually owns the club reporter lady was investigating. He accidentally cuts himself and the blood goes all over the statue, which proceeds to drink the blood, and he is like, "I'm not concerned by this. This is unconcerning to me." Next, we find out he is a total sleazebag and gives girls a rose at his bar so he can sleep with them in his private back room. But in this particular instance, his statue literally consumes the woman and then gives him a pseudo-philosophical lecture on how horrifically removing her skin with hooks and razors and then pulling her skinless body screaming into his statue to forever trap her soul in hell is basically the same thing as convincing a woman to sleep with you. Something I've been trying to convince the California State Supreme Court of for years. So anyway, Pinhead convinces the dude to bring him more women because fuck it, why not? Next, the rebellious girl from earlier overhears a message on reporter lady's answering machine about how she is leaving town, and rebellious girl's borderline personality disorder kicks in, and she immediately feels intense rejection, so she ends up going back to her ex-boyfriend, the club owner dude. What follows is a supremely annoying annoying scene I want to spend a little time on. She's in the back room, and he at first tries to convince her to have sex with him, which she won't do because she's not ready. Alright, that's fine, totally her choice. And in the next scene, the guy's listening to her talk about her problems with reporter lady. Club dude gets up and walks over to the statue and is like, "Oh, rebellious girl, come hug me over here by this totally not creepy statue." Because apparently, you have to get really, really close to the statue for the hook and chain trick to work. Rebel Girl hits Club Dude with a reverse Uno card, and he becomes the one consumed by the statue, which finally gives Pinhead enough power to escape. This is where the coolest scene in the movie happens, where Pinhead graphically and gratuitously murders everyone in the club in ridiculous, absurd, comically, and horrifically violent ways. Reporter Lady learns the dreams she has been having of her father in World War I are actually not of her father, but of Pinhead before he was a demon, and he tells her the most important thing, the only thing that matters, is that she wait in her apartment for Pinhead to come to her, because she will have the power to fight him there. He warns her Pinhead can be very persuasive and frequently employs trickery, and she needs to be careful. So she sees something on the news and packs up her shit and heads out to the club, in the most obvious trick since Cartman working for Walmart.
Wait, guys! Hold up! I want to go with you and help out. No way! You want to go with us so you can betray us at some point and keep us from destroying the Walmart. Nuh-uh. Yeah, huh? You want to go with us so that later you can go, "Ha-ha, I was working for Walmart all along," or something. Heh. You fools have no idea that I would never let you hurt the Walmart. I heard that! You heard what?
Reporter Lady finds the club in bloody shambles, and the movie takes an absolute nosedive straight to the schlocky trash zone. The people killed earlier have been turned into ridiculously stupid Cenobites, like the DJ of the club with CDs in his face, or Reporter Lady's cameraman with a camera in his head. The dialogue devolves to bizarrely unoriginal and uninspired puns.
Ready for your close-up, Joey? That's a wrap.
And the whole thing is so campy it is hard to believe what you're seeing.
Oh, Doc, no.
Have you seen what he did to me, you little bitch? Have you seen?
I generally like schlock and trashy horror, but the only enjoyment in the climax of this movie is in soaking in the absolute dumpster fire the movie has become, and longingly wishing you were watching the original movie again, which features one of the most nightmarish and haunting endings in cinema history.
Jesus wept.
Reporter Lady uses the puzzle box to defeat Pinhead and the rest of the Cenobites, and they show the camera Cenobite disappearing twice. Like, did anyone even watch this in editing? And credits. Alright, so there is a lot to unpack here, but let me talk about what I liked first. The movie is competently shot, and the camera movement is dynamic and motivated, like following a character's blocking in a single shot to establish emotional isolation from another character. The Reporter Lady is a pretty good actress and does her best with a severely crippling script which many other actresses would have caved under the weight of.
Oh, Doc, no.
So props to her for that. The effects are top notch for the most part, anyway. As has become a staple of this franchise, and though at times they are used to create supremely stupid monsters.
Have you seen what he did to me, you little bitch? Have you seen?
The practical effects are still fantastic and look great throughout. Some of the dialogue is pretty witty and fun. For example,
Shit! Gasoline!
Wait, hold on. Sorry, not that clip. Here we go.
You have to help me. I don't understand. Am I dreaming this?
You have to help me. You will understand, and no, you're not dreaming.
Alright, with that out of the way, let's dive into what doesn't work. Number 1, the writers don't understand the Hellraiser franchise. In the original Hellraiser, solving the puzzle box summoned the Cenobites, which are literal demons from hell, remember, and they came to wherever you were, shot chains out of the wall, and consumed your body and soul, damning you to eternal torture, and then disappeared back to hell, which in this universe is not just an abstract concept. I mean, Kirsty literally goes there in the second movie, which is why it's called Hellbound. The brother from the original movie, the first person we see solve the puzzle box in the franchise, gets taken to hell, and Kirsty's father accidentally opens a portal back to Earth from hell by spilling his blood on the floor. The Cenobites are not happy about this and come to claim the escaped soul, which is the premise of the original movie. Pretty scary stuff. The writers of Hellraiser 3 completely misunderstood the mythology of the Hellraiser franchise. They mix up how to summon the demons and how to allow souls to escape. The puzzle box is supposed to summon the Cenobites, and blood is supposed to allow souls to come back, and they kind of have it backwards. Furthermore, trapping Pinhead in the statue and having his powers only extend like 3 or 4 feet around the statue doesn't really make sense. If Pinhead has his powers, he should be able to link up with anyone within his realm of influence, which is the entire universe. Hell's Reach doesn't have a tiny sphere of influence, as shown in every other Hellraiser movie, including Hellraiser 4, where he is summoned on a fucking spaceship. Limiting Pinhead's power just neuters the character's supernatural mystery and sense of unlimited strength, and therefore the associated fear, though the brutal club massacre scene kind of makes up for it. This brings me along to number 2, horrible Cenobite design. Pinhead is still designed the same, thank God, but all of the rest of the Cenobites are new. The previous designs were gruesome, and the lack of explanation for what happened to these poor souls to end up looking the way they did allowed the viewer to imagine what horrible, endless torture they must have endured, and what choices in their life caused them to deserve such suffering. Hellraiser 3 removes the imagination part of this and replaces it with, oh, this guy was a DJ, so he got CDs in his face. Oh, and the cherry on top of this black hole of creativity is the character is apparently named CD the DJ, which just, ugh. Number 3, tedious exposition. This is a problem pervasive throughout the movie, but I want to highlight one specific scene. When Reporter Lady is getting the whole plot of this movie and the backstory of the entire franchise, including Pinhead's character, explained to her, Anthony Hickox decides to go with flashback narration to tell the story, which can be an effective way to dump information. The scene in Harry Potter where this happens is one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise, but that information was absolutely critical to the audience's understanding of what is going on in the story. In Hellraiser 3, there is, and I cannot possibly emphasize this enough, no reason to explain Pinhead's background. It has no relevance to the story and only serves to undermine the primary antagonist even further than the stupid statue thing did. Number 4. The acting. There are plenty of horrible performances in this movie, but I want to highlight 2 in particular, Rebel Girl and the Rose Girl. Rebel Girl's delivery is so monotone and unconvincing, she must have gone to the Rainier Wolfcastle School of Acting.
Did you ever notice how men always leave the toilet seat up? That's the joke.
For example, take this scene.
See. I love it here.
The Rose Girl is equally atrocious, maybe even worse, and for the exact same reason, which makes me think it is probably more an issue with the directing than the actresses. Let's have a look.
Radical. Wow, you've got great taste.
Alright, pretty flat and uninspired. Let's try another line.
This really says it, you know. It's really dark.
And cut. Perfect delivery. I have absolutely no notes. Let's call that a wrap. Number 5. Pseudo-philosophical nonsense. The accuracy of philosophy in a Hellraiser movie seems like a weird thing to pick a nit with, but let me explain. Pinhead is trying to convince characters to do what he wants, starting with Club Dude, building to Rebel Girl, and ending with Reporter Lady. After watching Pinhead remove the skin of and then consume the soul of the girl Club Dude hooked up with, he tries to shoot Pinhead. And when that doesn't work, it takes like 2 minutes of dialogue to convince him to join forces with Satan and bring him more women to kill. I mean, I know he sleeps around, but if you want to have a character believably join forces with Satan, I need a more convincing speech than this.
There is a place at my right hand for you, Monroe. For a man of your tastes. Tastes I can help you to indulge.
Overall, Hellraiser 3 is a movie which suffers from a lack of cohesive direction, poor acting, poor writing, and uninspired creature design. Some of the elements that made the first two movies so iconic are still present, such as Pinhead, the practical gore effects, and a competent leading lady, but the gravity of the negatives massively outweighs the positives and end up pulling them down and crushing them under their weight. Some of the movies I've criticized on this channel could be massively improved with a few minor changes, like zooming the damn camera out and putting it on a tripod. But Hellraiser 3 would require an entire script revision and restarting from the ground up, taking out the statue, focusing on the investigative puzzle box stuff, dropping the mind-numbingly stupid theme of casual sex is the same as hellish torture, removing the excessive exposition, and redesigning the creatures would be a good start, but that's like the entire movie, and I guess that's my point. I wish they had redesigned the entire movie.